welcome back to Woman Unplugged. Not every day, Woman Unplugged, where we go back to the episode previously aired and we just unpack some of the themes. And we bring in special guests. They don't have to be women. And so today I have a very, very, very special guest.
That's a lot of berries.
It is a lot of berries. I have my dear husband, Adam, here with me today.
Hi, babe.
Hey, welcome to the show.
Thanks.
Our last guest was Alicia Wade, and she had a lot to say about her son and all of that. So I thought Adam would be a great guest because Adam has been thrust into into the parenting realm. So thank you so much for being my guest today.
My pleasure.
Awesome. Okay, so we'll jump right in because I don't know if you can tell, but we're dressed for a party. So we got places to go.
See,
people to see, food to eat.
Yes.
Listen, I'm hungry. And also I've been doing this new like yesterday. Gluten free. So I reluctantly asked Adam this morning if he would hold me accountable because I don't want to be a mindless eater. He's a very intentional human. So I told him I was reluctant to ask him to keep me
knocking stuff out of your hand.
That's gonna be so messed up. But I mean, I told him also be kind because
I'm mean.
No, you are not mean, but you will hold me accountable. Yes. I know that. So we had a nice little chat about that today. Thank you.
My pleasure.
Okay. Shall we?
Sure.
Okay. So Alicia talked about talking to her son, Jonathan, who I think is 14, 15, about dating and like girls that he likes. Did you feel comfortable talking to your dad?
No. And not because of him, just because like being a teenager, they're old. They don't know what they're talking about. They like, I get it.
The girls are watching this.
I know. Well, but I mean, I get it. But like things do change. And it's interesting looking back and thinking about as a teenager, the things I thought about adults.
Yeah.
And I see a lot of that coming back at me. I'm like, you don't even know. But it's a cycle. Like every generation thinks that. I'm desperately trying to not be the guy that tries to be cool when he's not cool, but also like being somewhat aware of what is going on in the world too.
Absolutely.
So I think the fact that and I'm also a bonus parent, so and male, so the fact that they don't always want to come to me with things is perfectly reasonable. And I would like to give not necessarily advice, but perspective if they are dealing with certain things. But I also know that they're probably not going to come to me, and I'm okay with that. I mean, it makes sense, but it also is like, man, I could probably help quite a bit too.
Yeah, that part. So for those that are watching, if you're not watching for the first time, then you know that I have 3 daughters from a previous marriage. And if you are watching for the first time, then now you know, but then also Adam has not only been thrust into parenting, but also parenting teenagers and parenting teenage daughters in the modern era. So I was thinking about how, she had mentioned that he might be a little nervous, like asking out a date. And so she was like, hey, we need to be honest because, they might get swooped up before. Like, were you nervous asking?
Yeah.
Like, how did you approach that as a teen?
I did not date much in high school. I was not a popular kid. Which is one of the reasons why I would like to give perspective, because one of the fabulous things about Facebook is you can get in contact with people that you went to school with. And people that I haven't seen for 10, 15, 20 years. And I remember having conversations with people 20 years post graduation and them saying, yeah, I had the biggest crush on you. I'm like, what?
How do you let me know?
Oh. Or you were so intimidating. I'm like, clearly I was
You're tall though.
I'm tall, but I also had anxiety and depression, and I was awkward, and my reality was completely different than what other people perceived of me. And so there's some valuable lessons in that, but it's just, yeah, it's hard being a teenager.
It is. And so no tips for Jonathan asking out on a date. What perspective would you give?
I was having a conversation with somebody recently, and they said, if you could go back and do high school over again, would you? I said, well, there's one important caveat to that.
Yeah.
Do I know now? You know, if I could go back knowing what I know now,
the wisdom you have,
I would totally do it.
And
if I just had to go back and do it again, no. Like, nope, don't want any part of that. But man, since my injury, I have a spinal cord injury, and it changed my perspective on things. I have dated and then married way outside of my league because I was like, you know what? The answer is no to 100% of the questions that you never ask. And so if you just, like, the worst that they can say is no. And does rejection suck? Of course.
Of course, yeah.
But you're never going to know unless you go out there. And so and I've been turned down by plenty since my injury, but I have asked several women that prior to the injury I would have never asked. And I also may have had the perspective of like, well, it's about the disability if they say no. It's clearly not about me. But
because you're amazing.
Well, sure. Thank you. But I would say be nervous and do it anyway. Fear has kept me from experiencing lots of amazing things in this life, and I don't want that to happen anymore. And so, I mean, that's the benefit of age is you have perspective and you can learn lessons from yourself. So true wisdom is learning from other people's experience. And so if I were to give any guidance to a teenager is learn from my experience. And just shoot your shot.
Dive in.
Shoot your shot. And
he shot a shot with me. We went out for ice cream.
It was sucker. Like,
not a sucker at all. Listen, first of all, it was dairy free. And second of all, it's the best first date I've ever been on in my life. It was fantastic.
It was a really good first date.
It was. Okay, so you're new to parenting.
Yes.
How do you balance work with kids, activities, and, you know, how do you determine what gets the priority in a given day? Work or, you know, parent-teacher conferences, or Esther has a game, or
I mean, I'm new, but I also think that nobody has all the answers. And there's definitely a certain amount of weight that's, you know, you have to bring that in. And I really like the fact that Alicia said that her kids take priority. And I think that should be the case. I had the example of my father, who is a single parent, working 2 jobs. And managed to be not at everything, but most things.
Your memory is my dad was there.
My dad was there. Concerts, definitely there. I played in the pep band for like basketball, wasn't necessarily there for every one of those. But I was also in marching band. He was, if not every, 90% halftime shows, competitions. Unless he was doing something for work that he had to be there, he was there. He was there. And I'm not sure how he did it. So like that is my goal. I know that I fall short. And I've also had like the first year of our marriage dealing with a pressure wound. and then a surgery. And so I missed a lot of things that I really hated to miss. And then also I went to a lot of things that I probably shouldn't have gone to because it was important to me. But um, I was only supposed to be up for 2 hours a day, and I very rarely was actually under 2 hours a day.
Yeah.
And would frequently be at 4 or 5, 6 hours a day and I mean,
yeah.
So
for those that are watching and are not familiar with a pressure wound, it's the best thing that I can equate it to is more like a bed sore almost. And so when you're sitting,
that's the other word for it.
And it's another word for okay. Well,
yeah,
there you go.
Cubitus ulcer, bed sore, pressure wound. Also, I mean, there's all sorts of different words for
which
it. Which
happens from time to time, especially if you're sitting a lot, like this young man here. And so because of that, he could only be up in his chair, or he couldn't be up in his chair for a good number of hours. So that was definitely an adjustment during the first year of marriage.
And then I was in the hospital for 5 weeks from October 12th to just before Thanksgiving. So that, I mean, obviously I missed things for that. And then until New Year's Eve, I believe, was when I finally got the final release. I had limited amount of activity that I could be up. And so that even more so became, how do you weigh those things? Because I still need to make a living, to pay bills, to support the family, but I also wanted to be there. So, I mean, it feels good now that I'm able to be up and got my stamina back and can not do all the things, but more of the things.
Yeah, absolutely. How do you think we do with parenting, co-parenting on the kids?
I think we're still learning. I mean, we're 2 years in, and I think some things we do really well, and then other times I'm like, oh, I wish I would have known that. Like,
I would love a do-over.
either a do-over or like just I'm finding out late, like whole conversations have been had about things, and then I find out like, oh yeah, we're doing this tonight. Like that, I mean, would have been nice to be able to plan for.
Noted.
But it's a learning process, and so trying to figure all that out. And again, I'm a bonus parent, and so where does that, line come in? And it's also, the oldest is now 21. She moved out the week after I moved in. Our relationship is very different. And then the middle is 18. She just moved out. And I think she and I might talk more now that she's gone when she was here. And then the youngest is just turned 16. And so like each of them, one, because of where I came into their life at, as far as what age and what stage, and then obviously they're different human beings. So there's layers to how involved in that I'm going to be, because obviously I move in a week later. Like, it's a completely different deal for the oldest than it is the other two that actually got to spend some time living with me and me being an actual co-parent. Like, I think the oldest probably sees me more as a friend, and less of a dad, which I get. So yeah, and so navigating all of that for you and I is difficult in the learning experience as we figure all of that out, because it's like, I'm new to this. It's new for you because it's a different person than their father. It's your first second marriage, like
we're not doing this again.
All of the things add layers to it. And so it's like anybody, we're figuring it out the best we can.
Absolutely. I agree. Okay, so we were both band kids. Like, I didn't play sports. Did you play sports?
A little bit. Like, I did soccer in elementary school. I did basketball in junior high. So I mean,
but high school,
I didn't. I mean, I was a band geek all the way.
Yeah,
like
same.
Proud band geek. Like, I don't say that as a derogatory term.
Yeah.
Like, and
you play what instrument?
Percussion.
Percussion.
So I think a lot of the things that are benefits of sports you also get from band, specifically like marching band. But I also think there's added things that music does as far as, I mean, there's all kinds of studies about it as far as like what it does for your brain, scoring much higher, in, especially in mathematics, but everything across the board. But you also get a lot of the same benefits as being on a sports team as well.
Yeah. Do you think you could have survived being in a Black marching band?
I don't know enough to answer that correctly.
8 to 5.
Because
9 to 5. Sorry. No, it's 8 to 5. 90-degree angle.
So, I mean, we did 8 to 5, but we did low step as opposed to high step marching. There are certain things that my personality fit better with the more military style than some of the Black marching, and it's not across the board. So there are things that I like about both, and I don't know enough about Black marching bands to say, oh yeah, I could have hung, or no, I wouldn't. I mean,
it was fun times. We would spend our summers in Grambling, at Grambling State University to train. So shout out Grambling State University. And then we would do these band competitions around the country. I mean, I marched in the Rose Bowl and some of these other parades. I mean, it was just some great times. And then we would always find a band to battle, especially the drum line. So if you play percussion, what did you do? The quads? Was it the quads?
I did snare my freshman year, which was snare. An honor to be a freshman and to be snare.
Yeah.
And then I played quads my sophomore year and loved it and just stayed on quads. And so typically the section leader would be on snare. And so one, because of the fact that I was in quads, and two, frankly, because not because of my talent, but because of some behavioral things. I was not given section leader my senior year. So, I mean,
it's okay. Everybody's got a story.
My band director would get so frustrated. He's like, man, I would see greatness, and then you just do the stupidest stuff sometimes.
I didn't make captain of my senior, as a senior, my best friend did, Amber. Shout out, Amber. She was our majorette captain. So I didn't play an instrument. I twirled the baton. I was a majorette, and it was good times. Okay, Alicia talked about aligning her goals with her son's goals, like her goals for her son with his goals for himself. What do you hope for your bonus children? Girls, I hope you're listening.
I want them to be healthy, happy, and whole.
Yeah.
I came in late, so maybe I'm less likely to get into that, having a particular idea of what their goals and or future should be. Maybe it's also both through reading and making himself known.
This is Graham, everybody. It's Adam's service dog. Although he's not working right now.
Yeah. So it is easier to be just, I want them to be healthy, happy, and whole.
Yeah.
I want them to be successful in whatever that looks like to them.
Yeah.
And I think all three of them have very different ideas of what success will be. So I want them to be successful in whatever that looks like for them.
Good answer. Graham, what do you think? Yes. Graham, this was interesting. She talked about Jonathan having so many Black teachers. Have you ever had a Black teacher?
Definitely not in like kindergarten through 12th grade.
Uh-huh.
And I mean, I grew up in a white area. White,
That was white.
white.
Yeah, yeah.
Like per grade, you could usually have a Black
Oh,
student,
wow.
maybe a
Wow.
couple.
Wow.
So I don't think I know I didn't kindergarten through 12th.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm pretty sure I haven't
In college?
in college.
Wow.
I have had, I know one professor was Chinese. I've had a couple that were Latinx, but I can't remember any Black professors or teachers,
Yeah.
which
And
is sad.
it is. I think about like how few there are. Um, you know, I definitely had maybe shout out Miss Jacobs. I remember Miss Jacobs, fifth grade and elementary. Middle school, I had quite a few. It was pretty racially diverse at Carver. The school was at Emerson as well, but at Carver, um, the middle school, I had several Black teachers. My principal was Black. Carver Middle School, Miss Barbara Johnson. Shout out Barbara Johnson. Um, she was amazing. And then in high school, Booker T. I mean, it was historically Black, but was integrated in 1973. But by the time I arrived in high school, which was at 94, I guess, the teacher population was pretty well mixed. I had Black teachers, but I didn't have a lot of Black male teachers. So Mr. Myers. I remember Mr. Myers. He follows me on Facebook. I'm gonna tag him. I remember him. He was a great teacher and an assistant principal. And then Mr. Williams. If you ever had Mr. Williams in high school at Booker T, then enough said, right? I mean, just talk about a man that had such a profound impact on the lives of his students. His standards were high. He did not take any BS. Um, and boy, if you weren't trying to reach those standards like all the time. Uh, so thank you, Mr. Williams. And Carlicia, if you're watching this, thank you for sharing your dad with all of us all those years.
I think it's just interesting to see the mix of male and female and at different grades, because I didn't see very many. I didn't have him, but Mr. Haupt was the first male teacher that like I saw in a grade, and I think he might have moved from fifth to sixth grade as I moved through there, but I didn't have him either time. But I think he was the first male teacher. We had like a gym teacher or something like that. But I don't remember seeing many males until junior high and then high school. And then I also just think that it's interesting, like in mathematics and science, there were a lot more males and very few women. But then I mean, my father's an English teacher, but like languages and things of that nature, I saw a lot more women than men, and just seeing that difference. And I think I think that is seen across the country, and regardless of race, I think that comes into play as well too.
Absolutely. I remember Mr. Queen, my sixth grade English teacher, who also taught drama, which reminds me of your dad. And he was really impactful as well. He had a love for language and poetry and literature. And I learned how to fall in love with words in Mr. Queen's class. So shout out Mr. Queen. And you know what? I ran across his page on Facebook a few months ago, and I added you as a friend. I don't know if you have confirmed or not, but I'm gonna try to tag you in this post. Okay. Alicia talked a lot about mindset, and you talk a lot about mindset. So, how has your mindset or just shifts over time? How has it impacted your life? And yeah, talk to me about that.
My quality of life is directly related to my mindset.
That's deep.
There have been a couple of times where externally, I talk a lot about after I got sober, things got much better. I got sober when I was 25.
Baller alert.
Things got much better. And then I got into what I was doing.
Right.
And I didn't drink, but like I went back to school and I got, so there was this period of time where I got the girl back. I got the job that I want, I graduated, got the job that I wanted. We moved in together. I was making good money, or at least steady. I was a paramedic, so in the beginning you don't make tons of money, but and I was completely miserable. And then the last year prior to my injury, I got focused on recovery and healing, and through that, my mindset changed. And then when I had my injury, I've frequently talked about how I had a spiritual awakening. I became aware that no matter what happened to me physically, I was okay, and I was going to continue to be okay. And then post injury, I already talked about that. I wasn't going to let fear hold me back. And I've had some amazing things, and I've had some soul crushing things happen since my injury, and have been extremely grateful. And then not so much well, I mean, some of it was, there were several different factors. I mean, pandemic hit.
You're in a new state.
I was in a new city and state. I had started to grow a community of people through yoga down here, and the pandemic sort of pulled me out of that. And then the wounds sort of helped contribute to that, because I wasn't going to yoga because I couldn't sit on, and I typically sit on the mat. And so then, ironically, I found, like, through a series of events, I became much more successful at work. And then suddenly I found this deal where I was married to the woman of my dreams. I was killing it at work. I was struggling with a pressure wound, but like, I had all this amazing externally. Things are amazing. And I was again miserable. Now, some of that is also mental health, because I mean, so it's not just like mindset. But as I started coming out of that, like, I have been acutely aware recently of how, not necessarily I have changed, but my mindset has changed. And I was just thinking about this earlier today, so that the challenges at work seem bigger, the challenges at home seem bigger, because my mindset is off. And again, some of that is mental health, and I'm doing counseling, we're doing all that stuff, and some of it is just reconnecting to all of the things that help me get my mind right. And man, it has been difficult. I haven't been posting on social media much the last couple of years, but recently I've been going through and reading my memories every day to sort of reconnect with where I was at and the perspective that I had. And it can be amazing and also soul crushing to read some of that. And then I also look at some of the comments that people made, and I'm like, man, I am not
where you want to be.
Not where I want to be. I'm not I mean, I am, but I am not acting as the person that they're commenting about. Like, I'm just not there. So,
Yeah.
But so much goes into that, and it takes a while for that to change. Like, it's, piece by piece, and you can't turn a battle, or not a battleship, but a big ocean liner on a dime. Like,
Yeah.
it takes a while. It took a while to get off course. It's going to take a while to get back on course.
Do you feel like you see a path forward? Like, I see where I need to go and how I need to get there. I just need to stick to.
I definitely see a path, and also know that I can have an idea of what the path is, but the path frequently changes. And so that not being rigid is extremely important. That ability to be like, oh, this needs to be a priority. Yeah, this isn't working, or that used to work, or it's not as high a priority. This needs to become a bigger priority.
Absolutely. I think that's so good. And I would imagine we all face seasons like this. Yeah. That's what I love about seasons, because they come and go, they change us. We get to adapt, and sometimes I'll speak for myself. I can float through a season, and then I get to the end of it, and it's like, how did I get here? And then you look back and it's like, okay.
Yeah.
All right. Let me get back on course. So in a lot of ways, I feel like I'm in a very similar season as you. It's like, how did I get here? Let me figure this out and try to get back on a path that is headed toward where I want to be, what I want to do, and not losing sight of that. I find that when I'm journaling, I am much more in tune, on track. And when I'm not, I'm not. So,
I mean, one of the many benefits of age is that I know that I've been in similar situations, or similar mindsets, or like, I know that I can get to the other side of that, and that I was okay through the entire thing. Right. So it's not a matter of like, I'm going to be okay. I am okay, and I will continue to be okay.
Yeah, that's real. Preach, preach, preacher. Okay. Has fatherhood changed you at all?
I don't know if it's necessarily changed me. I think it makes me more aware of certain things about myself. And I think I also don't always give myself enough credit. I've been told by my dad, therapist, and I think you recently, that I can be too hard on myself. So maybe there's something to that. And on one hand, I can see the detriment in that, but on the other hand, I can also see that if you, like, the higher your standards, like, you need high standards to achieve certain things. And so having those high standards, and so finding that happy medium of holding yourself accountable and also having grace with yourself is
it's important.
Is important. So I frequently have joked about how I knew I was unprepared for being a father to teenagers, and then within the first week of moving in, I was like, oh, I didn't realize how unprepared. But I also think that I mean, nobody's ever prepared, and like, I think the wildly egocentric thing was thinking that I had to have all the answers, which, I mean, they're just human beings that are trying to figure stuff out. Like, they're growing into the person that they're going to be and want to be. And it's challenging and difficult. And, teenagers have a lot of hormones going on. And so, I mean, that brings into stuff like, so I mean, really, I should just be like, trying to be loving, hold them accountable, but also show grace. And then
I think you do a really good job of all of that.
And then also just like being a cheerleader that might, occasionally point in a direction like, hey, your path might be like, you say you want this, but you're going that way. The path might be over there, but also knowing that I more than a dozen times people have been tried to point me in a certain direction and I'm like, you don't know what you're talking about, and then been like, oh, maybe they did.
Maybe they did.
But also sometimes they didn't know what they were talking about. Like just because I'm 51 or, because I've had the life experience that I've had doesn't mean that I've got it all figured out. And obviously, being a white male in the US is way different than being a black woman in the US. And so there are some things that I'm just not going to have the answers.
Yeah.
But I can also sometimes be like, yeah, that is BS. Yeah, it is just a game. But guess what? Whether you play the game or not, those are the rules of the game right now. It doesn't make it right.
Yeah.
Like,
yeah.
I can give you some pointers on how to win some of this game, or like at least not take beatdowns in the game. Like, like
he's kind of piggybacking on a conversation we had with one of our daughters about college.
Well, I think just in general, there's lots of stuff that comes up.
Oh my God,
yeah, it's not fair, but guess what? That's the way that it is.
Yeah.
Like, it sucks.
Yeah.
I'll be the first to admit it.
Tell my kids, you're in the Matrix. Just like accept it or unplug from the Matrix, and good luck with that. Okay. Alicia talked about rest. So I have a question for you. Is rest earned or deserved?
It is deserved. Like, I don't know. Man, I struggle with this. So somewhere along the line, which I don't want to go completely against this, but like the whole like hustle mentality,
preach,
is such a crock.
It's okay to curse.
Like the meme that like 40 hours a week. I remember my first part-time job and all that stuff. I'm like, man, people have died so that we don't have to work 7 days a week. People have died so we don't have to work 11, 12, 13 hours a day. Like,
right. Literally.
People have died fighting for that stuff. And people have, like somewhere along the line, people are like, well, bought into this crap. And like, yes, if there's something that you are passionate about, by all means, hustle. But at the same time, it is not who you are. And also you have to, like, you can't pour from an empty cup. And so you have to fill your cup, whether that be rest, whether that be your faith, I mean, it's a combination of all those things. And so rest is something that is needed. And so like when I'm exhausted and like feeling guilty for taking a day where I don't do anything because I should be doing X, Y, and Z, whether that be laundry or whatever, I'm just buying into, like, I can't do that all the time. Like so finding that balance again is difficult, but no, rest is like,
you were just talking about needing rest last night, like this morning. He was like, man, so glad I got to sleep in last night.
Yeah, like I ate my dinner and fell asleep in front of the TV, got up and then did my stuff that I have to do every night, and then went to bed and got a solid 8 hours of sleep. And I was like, I feel like a different human being. And when I first moved down here, like I've always known that I get more emotional when I'm exhausted. And so when I first moved here, I didn't know anybody. And so like I was trying to do all the things and I'm working a new job and making sure at the time I was walking 2 to 3 miles a day. I was getting my workout in, and then living alone, you've got all the stuff to take care of. And so like Friday nights would come around, I'd be exhausted. And there more than a couple of times I would bawl leaving work. Like, what did I do? Like I was new at the job, so I wasn't being successful yet. It takes some time to grow into that. And so like I don't like not being good at what I'm doing. And so I was struggling with that. I was lonely. I was tired, and and so I'd get home. I'd, spend time with Graham, have a good meal. I'd sleep in. There was a restaurant that I used to go to, Kitchen 324, all the
Shout
time.
out.
And I'd go and have breakfast on Saturday, take Graham for another walk. And it was like the sun was brighter, like food
Just
tasted better.
sleep.
Like I got some sleep, some quality time. I meditated and had some good meals, and then suddenly,
commercial.
yeah, it goes back to halt, hungry, angry, lonely, tired. Well, I was usually like all four.
I never heard that before.
Oh yeah, so don't get too hungry, angry, lonely, or tired. And so, hanging out with people, getting, I had one teacher that used to say, there's nothing that cheeseburger and a nap can't fix. I used to joke
before.
I used to joke, well, there's some cardiologists that might, but like just that, like, oh, eating something, getting some rest, and and then going and hanging out with some folks, and then yeah, like I would have a completely different perspective by Saturday afternoon.
Yeah, it's important. When I'm tired, I'm just moody.
You don't say. It's like me saying, I don't have enough to eat. Sometimes I can get a skosh grumpy.
Listen, so it was in our vows. There's one thing that his family made clear before we got married, like, keep this man fed. If he is not fed, he is not happy. The hangry kicks in.
I'm getting a lot better. I mean, I've
only seen it a couple of times.
I still get it. I just know enough to keep my mouth shut. Like if I'm real hungry, I know that I get irritable. So I'm like, just keep your mouth shut and stay out of trouble. Because yeah.
Well, I did make a vow to keep him fed. So I hope I'm doing okay on that.
Usually.
So if he gets quiet, I know it's food. It's the food, y'all. Okay. I feel like I could just talk to you all night. I'm trying to figure out which questions do I want to, I'd love to, if you're watching this and you have paraplegia, I would love to talk about some of those things. So I have on here traveling. She was talking about retirement and what that looks like. So first, do you think you could live in or retire to another country?
Yes.
Okay, bet. Let's do it. Sorry for the mic. Let's do it because I love that. And then talk to us about traveling with paraplegia. So like I know we both shared a post recently from was it Mobility USA? I forget what the tag was.
I just went blank because the
I will find it.
Spinal Associations magazine, which is something mobility, and I can't remember.
Right here. Hold on. Keep talking.
New Mobility.
New Mobility, yeah.
But yeah, so there are all kinds
and that's the cover too.
Yep, yeah. I mean, it's air travel with a wheelchair is ridiculous.
Ridiculous, y'all.
And
stop breaking our equipment.
It was like 11,600 something wheelchairs in 2022
in 1 year
and were damaged.
Talk about the significance of that, because I think some people may be watching, and I mean, if you've never had to use a wheelchair, having your wheelchair damaged is not the same as like having your luggage damaged.
Yeah, not all wheelchairs are the same. People think a wheelchair is a wheelchair is a wheelchair, and that is not true. Most of the people, especially if they're taking it when they're traveling, it's the CRT, which is complex rehab technology. So they are like custom made, custom fitted to them, specific to their needs. So it's not like the wheelchairs that you see at the airport or that you see in the hospital where somebody's getting pushed around. Like mine is specifically made for me. My cushion, just the cushion alone is $400 because it is it helps prevent pressure wounds.
Yeah.
It's essentially the same as saying the airline broke 11,600, I think 39, I can't remember the exact number, people's legs last year. Because like this is how I get around. And so it's not like, oh, we can get you a chair that you can use. So even if they do repair them, in which one of the reasons why they don't do the training is it costs them less to repair and replace the wheelchairs than it would to do training and continue that cycle of training all of their employees. So it is a conscious decision made by the airlines to not do the training.
Yeah.
But there are people that have died because their equipment was broken. They were put into a chair that was not fit for their needs. They got a pressure wound, and you can die from a pressure wound. It is not uncommon at all for people to get a pressure wound. It continues to get worse. It gets infected. They go septic and they are dead. So, but then there's also the fact of like, even if you don't get to that extreme, there's the humiliation of being, there have been several people that have been dropped or just mishandled or in getting that assistance in the transfer in and out of their chair. The most recently, the flight to Washington that we took, the first leg I was able to get to, which I've always flown Southwest specifically because I could get to the first row. So I could get my chair to the first row, make the transfer into the seat, and then they take my chair that goes away. So they have changed their airline, so now I can't even get to the first row in my chair.
Right.
So I either have to slow everything down and have them bring the aisle chair and then have people help me and do that. And so I either have to go through that or I do what I did where I like got down onto the ground and then got
back up
into the seat.
Yeah.
Which going there, just because the way everything was positioned was fairly easy to get into the seat, but then getting back into my chair, getting down was fine. Getting back into my chair, just the angle that I was having to hold on to, I struggled with. So yeah, but like once you get there, the hotels, even if you check and double check and have them, like there are all sorts of things as far as like the height of the bed sometimes is difficult. They don't actually have a shower bench, even though it's supposed to be a mobility accessible room. My first hotel in my cross country trip last year when I rode my hand cycle across the US put me into a room, and I came down and I said, hey, it's not accessible. It doesn't have this, this, or this. And they said, it's accessible. And I was like, I can't use the room because I can't use it because of this, this, and this. And they said, well, the architects know what they're doing. I said, well, clearly not. I can't use it. Like, and I am a pretty high functioning person with paralysis.
Yeah.
Not because of anything special about me, just because my level of injury allows for me to have more upper body strength,
full use of your arms,
full use of my arms and some abdominal muscles. So traveling, I love to travel. Traveling with a disability, the nice way of saying it, is difficult.
Yeah. Very nice.
And once you've been to a certain place, then like I know places that I can and can't go in Vegas or in different cities that I've been to. But every time you go to a new place, it's like, well, let's see what happens here.
Yeah. So if you are watching this, if you want to be an ally, you can reach out to your airlines, let them know that, you know, these new features that they are testing out, they need them. So one feature is being able to stay in your chair while on the plane and not having to get out of the plane and into the airport, into the airplane chairs. Another feature that they're looking at are wider aisles. And there was another one.
Actually having accessible bathrooms.
Accessible bathrooms. So literally on this last trip, like you wouldn't drink.
I intentionally dehydrate myself in order, which is not uncommon, which then raises the risk of urinary tract infections.
Right.
I use catheters to empty my bladder, which a lot of people with paralysis do. And so one of the things they're supposed to do is drink plenty of fluids to prevent UTIs.
Yeah.
But, I couldn't do that because I can't.
So our Pete Buttigieg, I hope I said your name right. Transportation. He's with the transportation department. Mm-hmm. So I know that
heads the transportation.
Yeah. What did I say?
He's with. I was just making sure.
Yeah, Mr. Transportation guy. Yeah, we love what you're doing and hope that you can actually get some things done and not just talked about on planes. It affects real people. I'm just looking at the picture of this wheelchair that was damaged. I mean, good Lord. So now what does a person do once they get off the plane? Think about it. Wheelchair's damaged. Y'all brought it to me. It's damaged. I can't do anything with it. So like literally, how's this person? It's not like he can go down to the neighborhood Walgreens and buy a new wheelchair. So
and it can take months to get it repaired or replaced. And yeah. So I've gone to 4 Roll on Capitol Hills and 4 or 5 chapter leadership meetings for United Spinal Association. And I've never been to one of those events where at least one person hasn't had their wheelchair damaged on the way there.
Oh my goodness gracious. So chime in to the comments. If you have had your wheelchair damaged while traveling, we want to hear from you. I'd love to know about your experiences. One, it helps to document it and let other people know who are watching this and maybe didn't even know. I know before I married Adam, I just was completely clueless about what life was like for people with different disabilities. And so I'm learning a lot, and I'm learning how to be an ally, how to be a support, but also use my voice. So I think that's also a good time for us to shut down because it is
wrap it up.
Time to take our 16-year-old to the homecoming dance and for us to go party with some adults.
Yes.
So thank you guys for tuning in. I'm so glad you all got to meet Sir Adam, as we like to call him.
She says we, but it's really only her.
No, Valerie calls you Sir Adam as well.
Oh, does she?
Mm-hmm. I think she made
all the girls give you a hard time for like Sir Adam. Ugh.
Yes, they do, but they understand. So thank y'all for tuning in. Would love to know what you thought about this episode. Please chime in on the comments if you have questions or if you want to learn more. I'll try to leave as many resources as I can in the description. And until next time, thank you.
Deuces.
Thank you, Adam.
Thank
Bye.
You.